Welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show, where we learn from builders, the people who grow, innovate, and shape business in real time. Today, I'm talking with Daniel Layfield, a product growth strategy who helped drive over $100 million in revenue, scale Codecademy from $10 million to $55 million RR, and later manage key ranking system at Uber Eats. Now he consults with startup on scaling subscription model, reducing churn and building product customer actually want. Dan has lived in the trenches of product growth, not just in theory, but in results. Dan, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Arnold. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So Dan, what was it like growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in northern New Jersey. I had a great childhood. My family moved to America when I was like 3 years old, and we grew up in kind of standard suburbs outside New York City.
Wow, amazing. So what moments influenced your earlier life that made you curious about product growth?
Yeah, I think I discovered product and growth till I was probably 30 years old. So I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do in my career early on. I went to college in Connecticut. I knew I wanted to live in New York City. So I kind of just joined like banking and consulting when I was really, really young. It's a great industry. You learn a ton, but it wasn't for me. And I feel like I was searching for something that was more kind of hands-on and purpose-driven.
Wow, amazing. So what was your first startup environment that you ever stepped into? And what shocked you the most about it?
Yeah, tried to start my own company when I was probably 28. I tried to start an ad tech company. We kind of got off the ground. We made some revenue, but it didn't work ultimately. It really made me realize like how many skills you need as an entrepreneur to be successful. I was like good at banking and consulting jobs, but until you step out of those big companies, you don't realize how much those companies do for you and how much you need to do on your own to be successful.
So, Kia, I think entrepreneurship entails a whole lot of stuff, and being employed, sometimes you don't know what it's encoded in it compared to when you just step out and do your own things and discover that, whoa, there's a whole lot of background work that needs to be done to get it off the ground.
Yeah, 100%, as I'm sure you found with this show.
So you joined our Code Academy earlier. Eh, what did the company look like when it was our $10 million revenue, ARR, compared to when it was $55 million revenue?
Yeah. So I joined Codecademy in probably 2016. Codecademy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it was like a massive product in the early like online learn to code space. So it starts in 2011. It comes out of Y Combinator. Probably like 2011, 2012, learning to code is becoming a thing online. Businesses are thinking about it. People are talking about it. Our CEO is like on the Colbert Report, which is a giant show in America. Like we're all over the press. So we see a ton of traffic growth in the early days, but we're not like very good at building the business yet. So I get there in 2016, just about. We have a paid product, but we like kind of don't know how to optimize it. The company is 20 people, and we're in the process of really building like the company side of things to be able to support the revenue growth. By the time I leave in probably 2021, it's way bigger. We have 250 people. We have
Wow.
established divisions. We have department heads. We have OKRs. And we're now like getting good at actually hitting revenue growth targets.
Wow, that was really amazing. Yeah. So what good decision or experience moved the needle the fastest while you're working there?
Yeah, I think the thing I really like took from that experience at Codecademy is there's not really like one or two things you can do to grow businesses like that. It's a combination of like you need the right team and culture. You need like prolonged focus on what matters. And the like levers for growth are never the first ones you think. So you need like smart people who are dedicated and focused to stay in areas for a long period of time to find like what really, really matters. So a big part of Codecademy was a freemium product. So there's a free part and a paid part. I'd say the things that we thought would grow the paid product when we started in like 20, maybe 17 or 18 on this work were like, we should spin up new advertising channels. We should redo our pricing page. And like those things didn't work at all. It was probably like our sixth or seventh shot where we figured out like pricing, positioning, annual plan ratios, international pricing, payment processing, all these like little 5 and 10% improvements that like stack up to be meaningful.
Amazing. Thanks for that particular enlightenment. I think it's very, very key that, yeah, it's just hearing from you, just speak volumes to the fact that not just one single thing make company grows. There are a whole lot of integral thing to here and there, little here, little there, that actually more like build up, that speak volume to making growth, especially when you make reference of the right team, focused, and the fact that consistency has to be. Yeah, it's not something that happen in a year. Sometimes it take a lot of time for every of those things to actually more like fit in together.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So you said mistake taught you the most. What was your biggest mistake? Biggest one that creates a breakthrough?
Yeah, I'd say it's less one, but some of the biggest mistakes you can make in product management. I'd say the causes are all different, but the outcome always looks the same, where you sink too much time into a project that does nothing. But like product management, you're basically like almost like a general contractor of software. So like you have an engineering team of 6 to 8 engineers, you have a designer, you may have a data scientist. It's very easy to lose track of the fact that those people cost a lot of money. And like the biggest expense of software companies is salaries. And your time, ultimately, you're the one directing their work. So if they spend 6 months on a project and that project does nothing, like you have lost the company a ton of money. So I'd say it's the hardest thing about being a product manager is determining like the right scope for a project, because
Mm,
you feel pressure. You always want to like put more features into something to try to raise the likelihood that it's successful. But when you do that, you drive up the cost of a project. Like, and if you're wrong, you can be screwed. So it's always like
wow.
you don't both like do enough research up front, you don't make enough hard decisions up front, and like you end up inflating the cost of things. I'll give you a specific example from when I was at Uber. So one of the first projects I saw happen at Uber was like Uber's a marketplace. So within Uber Eats specifically, you have like the restaurants, the couriers, and the eaters. And courier supply is a really important dynamic to that marketplace, because if there's not enough couriers, food is too slow to get picked up from the restaurant and delivered to the eaters. And the eaters have a bad experience. They want a refund. The restaurant's lost money, et cetera. It's bad. So there was a really interesting project that kicked off where when a restaurant got too busy, the system would like dynamically reroute couriers around people and around restaurants to similar restaurants and push the supply in one direction, push the demand in another
Mm,
direction. It's a type of project that like really smart people like a lot, because it's really fancy. It's a really elegant solution. And probably before I'd gotten there, but maybe like 6 months of engineering effort went there across 3 or 4 teams at Uber, which is worth millions and millions of dollars. And we got there and like the solution technically worked, but the team missed the assumption that this happens so infrequently, that this process like is triggered so rarely, that even though the solution worked, net that this does nothing.
wow, wow.
So it's like,
Amazing.
it's a really
Amazing.
like easy assumption to miss at the beginning.
Wow, amazing. Thanks a whole lot for sharing your experience on that. I think it just speaks volumes to there's a whole lot of yeah, I'm just imagining how it's more like, especially doing a creative work where you don't even know where it's leading. So, but you just have to be the person spearheading the team and thinking about what the outcome is going to be, and the fact that you have to figure out what they need to do, so that at the end of the day, it's not being that you are the one paying them, and being that it's a startup. Sometimes, most times when you start out, nothing is being paid yet. You are just more like, it's really, really demanding. And just hearing you make reference of the mistake and how you could actually more like do a whole lot of preparations before you actually kick off is very, very key, compared to not doing any background stuff in terms of the execution and everything. Yeah, yeah. So, what are the real levers behind subscription growth that people underestimate?
Yeah, I'd say subscription growth comes down to like 4 or 5 major areas. So there's kind of like how people find the product. So sign up flows, how the paywall structure works, how you communicate the brand. There's the initial like onboarding and purchase experience. Mistake companies make all the time is they don't monitor their checkout page enough. So if you think of all the money and time you put into marketing, 100% of that effort flows through a single point, which is your checkout page. If there's any errors, compatibility issues, cross-browser problems on checkout pages, it costs you money every single time. So like a 1% increase in checkout page conversion, a 1% increase in new revenue. All your new revenue goes to a single page. So after that, it's kind of like, what does the life cycle of a product work like? So how do you find it, engage with it, move through it? Is it you're supposed to be using it weekly, monthly, daily, etc.? It's really the recurring usage that drives subscription growth. After that, I'd say it's how does payment processing work? Big problem in consumer subscription products is someone's card fails. It's a US based company. They have users in, they have users in Nigeria, and our payment processing systems don't handle those cards really well. And users lose access to the product who are happy. And like we, the business, lose them, the users lose them. It's a problem for everybody. After that, I'd say it's churn and cancellation flows. Again, it's like it's not one thing that drives all these things. It's like best practices across all of these areas.
Wow. Wow, amazing. Best practices across the area, especially when you make reference of the checkup bit, being that a whole lot of things coming through it. So getting it well and reviewing it every now and then is something every industries have to do to know what goes wrong every now and then and get to fix it. If you had to teach more like a beginner growth team, one core principle, what will it be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say something that all of the best software companies in the world do is use something called North Star metrics. So North Star metrics is a way of measuring the overlap of user value and business value. And if you're optimizing a software product, you want to like thoughtfully pick that metric and make sure that number is going up with time. So a good example is like Airbnb uses a North Star metric called nights booked. So like the whole company is optimizing to make sure more people book and successfully book nights on the platform. So every team can like figure out how they drive that number up. There's a big like hesitance. There's a big, I'd say, bad tendency in subscription products and consumer products in general to try to optimize on revenue. But like revenue is like a lagging indicator of the value you get. You're going to have the most successful product in the long term if you figure out the leading indicator of revenue. And North Star metrics is a really good way of thinking about that. So like implied in a North Star metric is also like strategic decisions. So Airbnb could be centering around nights booked and not profit. If they centered around profit, the easiest thing to do to drive more profit is optimize what you're already doing, raise pricing, and then you wouldn't expand like geographically into new countries. You wouldn't expand away from the cities, et cetera, et cetera. So like really thoughtfully picking that. And I'd say making sure that like you look at that metric like every week at least as a whole team and make sure your efforts are driving that.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for actually sharing that particular point. So let's talk about Sean. What are the four horsemen and how can company combat them?
Yeah, great question. See, before we jump into that, it's like it's really important in subscription businesses to realize how impactful churn is for you. So if you think of the thing you're trying to do in any business is increase the lifetime value of your users. The only like true defendable position in business is like you monetize your users so well that you can afford to spend more to acquire them than your competitors can. A really like good rule of thumb in subscription businesses is like understanding that your lifetime value is basically 1 divided by your month-over-month churn rate. So if your month-over-month churn rate is 20%, 1 divided by 0.2 is 5. So your average users stay around for 5 months. So if you know the maths, it's like your churn rate has a massive impact on the LTV. And every like percentage point you drop churn raises the LTV, which raises the value of the business as a whole. I'd say the 4 horsemen of churn really are like payment processing, like activation and onboarding, use case expansion. And I'm blanking on the fourth one, honestly, but I'll dive into each one. So the easiest, I'd say the fastest way of impacting churn, I'd say is payment processing best practices. So to make sure that like you are retrying failed cards, you are contacting people when their payments fail, you are optimizing receipts. So you're not losing happy users unnecessarily. I'd say after that, it's like early activation points. So like users come to your product for some type of value. You could be Duolingo and they're coming to you to learn a language. You should monitor the early life cycle of those users and make sure if someone falls away early in the experience, that you're using emails and push notifications to try to bring them back. Or if they download the product without ever picking a language, that you're trying to contact them to drive them back onto what you call the happy path. After that, I'd say it's the happy users at some point run out of the problem. So let's say you downloaded Duolingo to travel to learn Spanish ahead of a trip to Costa Rica. And that trip is 2 months away. You're going to focus on learning Spanish for that 2-month period. But after you come back from Costa Rica, your desire to learn Spanish goes down a lot. So is the product giving you something else to do to try to win you back? One of the hardest problems to solve is that use case expansion. So inherently, consumers do things for a fixed period of time. You don't want to typically learn to code forever. You want to learn to code until you're a certain level of competent where you can go off and do a project. The hardest thing to do is build other use cases. A joke that I always make is probably the company that I owe the most money to of all the tech companies is Bumble, the dating app, because I met my wife on there and we have 3 kids.
Wow.
But however, I paid Bumble $0. I am married now. I never need another dating app. So under no circumstances will I ever go back to Bumble.
Yeah.
So it's in a sense, the underlying problem is gone. Even though I had a great experience on that product, there's no point of using that anymore.
Wow, amazing. I think it just speaks volume, especially when you make reference of, I think this just speaks volume when analyzing more like a subscription business, being that looking at what they do, we could actually speak volumes to the use cases and what could actually be do differently, in order to actually improve the onboarding system and to make it at least easier for those who are actually coming in and be able to evaluate to what extent that they're actually more staying to what percentage and everything. And I think this is just big volume. Yeah, thank you.
If you're starting a subscription business or any consumer-oriented business, the thing to pick the most thoughtfully is what is the problem you solve? And how long does that problem go on? So there's kind of certain zones of businesses that work. One is never-ending problem, small ticket size, really wide distribution. So think of insurance, rent, entertainment, music, etc. Another one that works is niche problem, not a ton of users, but really impactful problem. And they'll pay a lot for it.
They'll pay a lot, yeah.
The zone that everybody dies in is short-term problem, not super valuable, not a ton of users.
Yeah, so true. Thanks for a lot for that clarity. So where do young product team often waste time when they should be testing decision faster?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest parts of learning product management is the whole cycle is slow. So you'll go through yearly planning, you'll go through quarterly planning. Depending on the size of the company that you work at, you could work on projects that are 3 or 4 months long. So it takes a lot of repetitions to understand how the early decisions you make impact the later stage of projects, which drive the results. So if you're working at, I'd say a normal 1,000 to 2,000 person company, and you are running 3 or 4 month projects, you only get 3 or 4 reps in a year. And if you make the same mistake 3 times, you end up losing a year of impact, which ends up holding you back. The trickiest part about product management is it's a very hard skill to learn because most of the best product managers don't write anything down. So the people who scaled Netflix, scaled Uber, most of those people didn't write books. They're rich now. They're living off on yachts somewhere, and they're not teaching other people.
Wow,
So it's similar. I always equate it to like quarterbacking a football team or something like that, where it's you can't read about it. It doesn't teach you enough to read about it. You have to do it. And to do it, you have to find an environment that you can do it in and find someone you can learn under who's really, really good, who can show you the ropes.
Wow, thanks so much for that, Dan. I think it just speaks volume, especially learning a whole lot of things, being that sometimes there's no this product to actually experiment with. So learning this skill very fast is going to be difficult. I think the best practices in this particular end is going to be more just find an environment where things are currently going on and someone who can actually teach you possibly. And over time, those particular things to do on and on will actually definitely make sense, especially when it comes to product design, being that you have to jump into a whole lot of couples of projects before you might get to understand a whole lot of the intricates part of the particular system. And I think at a point, definitely when you look at big product and every other stuff being done, you could understand what went on, being that you have still long with other stuff.
Yeah, I'll give you the best advice I ever got on like learning product management is to break into product management. You have to get into a company that's good at it, like however you can. Even in the
Oh,
US, getting hired into product management right out of college is really, really, really hard. So at Uber, I think I worked in Uber Eats and I worked in the consumer side of Uber Eats. I think maybe that organization is, I'm going to guess, multiple thousands of people. We probably took 10 kids out of college into our like entry level product management program every year. And those people came from the best universities in the United States,
oh,
like Harvard, MIT. It's super, super competitive. Everybody else kind of what I call like laterals into product management at some point. So like
wow.
you either get like picked to join the team. So the best place you can get into product is like get into those top flight companies or companies that are great at product however you can. Almost always that has you have to come in as like an analyst, an operations person or something like that. Just get in the door and then try to work as closely as you can with the PMs.
Wow, wow.
And
Thanks a whole
then
lot for that advice.
yeah, make it known that you want to work in product, do really, really good at your job, and hopefully get pulled over into a training program. Product is like it's a crazy skill set because like no one goes to school for it. It's a combination of like project management, design, analytics, user research, metrics, business understanding. So it's like no one is great at all those things coming out of school. You're good at like one of them and you learn the other ones.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for that. So how important is pricing experimentation? And what sign shows pricing is wrong?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like pricing is wrong, but like you can always optimize your pricing. So if you think of the North Star of business is to increase your lifetime value, lifetime value has two things in it. It's how long people stay around and how much they pay you on average per month. If you increase the lifetime value, you increase the revenue of the business. Length you can work on, but it's hard. It takes a lot of time to get users to stay around longer. But like pricing, depending on how you run experiments, you might have like low hanging fruit in the pricing world. I've seen pricing experiments increase revenue per user like 15 to 20% in like a month and a half. When you think of like the impact on the business, it's huge. So there's a lot of ways of surveying pricing. There's something called the Van Westenhorp survey. If you Google any of them, you can find them. In my experience, like the methodology, like you will only get a guess on what users will pay. The only real way of testing is like putting those prices in front of users and seeing what they actually do. A question I wish consumers would actually answer is like, what would you pay for this thing? But like no one's answer is ever truthful there because like
Yeah.
they in theory did, but like once you make them pull out their credit card, like it's never the case. So you can run A/B tests around pricing. A/B tests have something called a North Star metric in it or a primary KPI. The primary KPI that we always use is like revenue per allocated user. So the money you make on each side of the test divided by the number of users you make on the other side of the test. And that gives you like a pretty good indicator for your whole user base, which of these two buckets is most effective.
Wow, wow, amazing. Thanks a whole lot for giving that insight. So you work on ranking and user experience for Uber Eats. What make ranking system so influential in conversion?
I'd say the thing that like consumers are typically looking for in food delivery is like familiarity with like a little bit of expansion. A problem that or a interesting challenge at Uber was always like trying to get users away from just their preferred restaurant. So if you think about, I lived in New York City, it's Wednesday night, it's raining. My wife and I want to order like ramen and like would do the same thing every time I want to order. Typically, you have like one or two stores you order from because you like it. But if one of those platforms churns off Uber Eats, you're going to lose me as a user because like I like that restaurant. So it's like, how do you find and like expand user preferences out away from just their favorite things? It's one of those places that it's tricky to balance, like what the business wants and what the user wants. Because like the user wants the thing they like. But the
Yes,
business
yeah,
to like
such a
serve them in the long term needs to expand them away from that because it'll be risky if they just churn off that one store.
Amazing. I think at the end of the day, it's more like valuing our customer in a way that, it's how they actually want it. Sometimes you get to present it, especially being that all of them prefer some certain restaurant. At the end of the day, you shouldn't, match them with another, which, that will cost it to actually more like lose them along the line. Yeah. So then, if you were starting from zero again today, what is the first move you actually make?
Starting from zero, like career wise, or like with a business from zero?
Yeah, career wise.
Yeah, I think what I did, I don't know if my career is the best example. I think things that helped me in my career is like when I started working, I was in New York City. So like New York City has every potential industry in it. So like I jumped industries 2 or 3 times without moving. And that was like possible because of all the people I was around in New York City. I think I had like I worked at JP Morgan early in my career. I worked at Booz Allen, which is like a big US consulting firm. I do think those like rubber stamps from big companies like do matter. Some good advice I've always gotten in my career is like in your teenage years, just like don't do anything wildly stupid. Like don't go to jail, like don't like
Yeah.
make a massive mistake. In your 20s, like go wide and explore a lot of things. So like be in an environment where you can try a lot of different things because the thing that will matter in your job is like how long you can stay focused in areas. And if you hate the thing you're doing, it's going to be really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And then in your 30s, it's like you start to find something you want to specialize in. And then like you spend your 30s getting really good at that thing, which sets you up for like your 40s and your 50s. So I'm 41, I just entered my 40s. I think like I found that advice to ring true for me.
Wow, wow, amazing. Thanks for actually dropping the blueprint for us. And I think this is very key for every listener, being that, in their 20s, trying out the whole of possible things they could actually try around to see which one they get to love and then get to measure it on it when they're in their 30s to create stability. And I think this is very, very lovely and a lovely way to actually more like go. So what does good activation look like when building a self-serve product funnel?
Yeah, I'd say the percentage is always tough. You want to like lose as few users as humanly possible in the activation journey. You'll always lose some. I think to give you a sense of how important it is, the stat that always jumped out to me from benchmarking surveys, I think this is from RevCat, that of they have thousands and thousands and thousands of apps in this benchmarking survey. If a user's going to start a trial of a mobile app, overwhelmingly it happens on day 0. So if you don't catch them in the first session, you lose like 80% of users. So like the initial value in positioning the app has to be really, really good. And you should try to keep it as like simple and low friction as possible. Things that I always see applications do, which to me feel like mistakes, are like not giving the user any value at all before you ask them to sign up with their email. So they need to like see and feel the application a little bit. Analogy I always make is like if you wanted to like sell me a steak, the best chance you're going to have of selling me that steak is like, I enter the restaurant, I sit down at the table, you put it in front of me, I see it and smell it, and then you ask me to buy it. Versus like, you leave me outside and describe it to me. It's always going to be more effective the first way. So I think apps need to do basically the same thing of like, let people in, let them see and experience the value, and ask them for something only after you've given them a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So, Dan, for my audience looking forward to connect with you and to do business with you, what best platform is it that they could actually reach out to you?
Yeah, I write pretty much everything I know on my blog. It's called subscriptionindex.com. If you go there, there's a playbook on how I think about scaling subscription businesses. So you'll see it in the header. So again, that's subscription like a subscription business, index like a stock index.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, thank you for breaking down growth in a way that is practically an action. Your journey from early stage at Codecademy to Uber Eats and now consulting startup worldwide shows that revenue doesn't grow by chance; it grows by curiosity, testing, and commitment to solving real customer problems. To everyone listen, build, test, learn, improve. Our growth life and decision you make and the risk you take. This is the Aro Benaiah Show. On the next time, keep building. And once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Aro.